2, 1.
Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is GrokTALK. It's October 24th, 2015, and these are some of the stories we might be following. Big news of the week isn't that Hillary Clinton lied at her Benghazi hearing. But Clinton always lies. It's the primary candidate, Jeb Bush, is claiming money troubles. Team Bush announced massive campaign layoffs and cost austerity measures designed to save the campaign money. Pro-Bush forces will undoubtedly spin this as proof that the governor can cut budgets and make hard choices. Bush opponents, particularly on the left, will probably claim it as evidence that he's a job-killing machine who doesn't care about hard-working Americans. Bush has an estimated 10 million campaign bucks in the bank, so he's not exactly hurting for money, but the money that is being spent on his campaign isn't moving the needle. Perhaps he should consider running as someone else with different ideas. If that's not possible, retirement from politics is always an option. The Democrat side of the presidential primary contest, if you can even call it a contest, is officially short another old white leftist. Lincoln Chafee has dropped out after discovering that he's not actually a human being at all but a mollusk. Chafee is famous for party hopping, from Republican to Independent and then to Democrat. The experience has caused some soul-searching, which has led the former Rhode Island governor to discover that he is not a person at all, and he plans to spend his remaining days in a damp environment. He has not yet announced whether he believes himself capable of growing an external, calcareous shell. Stay tuned, we'll be back with more stories we might be following after this. GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, The Rock, NHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime, on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
GrokTALK.
Congressman Paul Ryan has made a deal with House Republicans in Congress to run for Speaker of that body, as long as he doesn't have to paint himself orange. In exchange for not having to impersonate an Oompa Loompa, he appears more than willing to lead like one, sending signals to outsiders that insiders will continue with business as usual. Challengers who do not align themselves with inside the Beltway invertebrate Republican thinking are encouraged to challenge the new Boehner for the job, but no one is holding their breath. The Washington Post is reporting that congressional Republicans say they are short the votes necessary for raising the debt limit and avoiding a first-ever government default. With barely a week before deadline, there's no plan on what to do, says the Post. It's a huge problem for House Speaker John Boehner and a potential nightmare for his successor in waiting, Rep. Paul Ryan Boehner. GOP leaders promised Friday that the House will act next week, just days from a November 3rd deadline, increasing the government's $18.1 trillion borrowing cap so that it can continue to pay its bills in full and on time, which would prevent a potential meltdown in the financial markets and save the Republican Party from presiding over default on U.S. obligations. This whole scenario sounds vaguely familiar to me. I just can't seem to put my finger on why. Those are the stories we might be following. Stay tuned for GrokTALK.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Well, we'd like to welcome you back to whatever it is that passes for normalcy here at GrokTALK, live from the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire. We are back in the studio after 3 weeks on the road, and I couldn't be happier. We have Skip Murphy here, of course.
Hello.
Co-founder of GrokTALK.com, and Mr. Mike Murphy at the end of the table.
Mike Murphy?
Mr. Mike
Isn't
Murphy. Mr. Mike Murphy. Mr. Mike Rogers.
He's the head of a Bush super
Wait, you're
PAC.
Skip Rogers and he's Mike Murphy. I keep forgetting.
Well,
and so do a lot of our readers, apparently. If we show up individually instead of together, they can't tell one from the other.
They have mustaches.
Yeah.
they're all gray.
And I keep telling
And
everybody.
glasses.
Mine's not
I
quite
keep
gray,
telling
but I'm getting there.
I keep
I'm
telling
catching up.
everybody.
Enough.
Yeah, Skip's mustache and hair is more luxurious than mine, but
All right, well,
Thank you very much.
bushier.
Thank you very
that is.
much.
there you go.
But Bush is probably a bad word.
Coming on the program today, Andrew Hemingway. He's on the line waiting for us to stop fooling around. Ed Nail's going to join us to talk about Carl Gibson's indictment. Max Abramson is in to discuss some different issues regarding legislation that's coming up in the session. And, of course, we'll try to fit in all the other foolishness, the WTF, and yada, yada, yada. But let's move forward because we're here, we have a guest on the line, and hey, that's what we're here for. Andrew Hemingway, welcome to the program, sir.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me on.
Yep, glad to have you. So, last week there was this caucus thing that happened in the Durgan Polling Arena at Hopkinton State Fair, and a whole bunch of people showed up. What's your impression of the event, and what do you have to say?
Didn't you actually design the idea, Andrew, as I seem to remember?
Well, yes. I mean, back in January, you know, this is the whole thing. I mean, we as conservatives are terrified about this upcoming presidential election, especially because we have so many conservative candidates. Candidates who may or may not, truthfully be conservative, but are pulling from the conservative base of the vote. And we see really only one, and maybe with Kasich two, candidates on the establishment moderate side who are really pulling from that base. And so, if the reality, of all of that comes true, then conservatives are in a real problem because we're going to end up splitting our votes, which is not a new story for conservatives in elections when we split votes and the moderate wins. Take, for instance, the U.S. Senate race where we had Bob Smith and Jim Rubins both pulling from the conservative base, and in walks Scott Brown, who, even though he got a lower percentage than both of their votes combined, ends up winning the nomination. And I'm just tired of seeing minorities, in the party win seats and go on to represent and claim that they are the Republican Party, when indeed they're actually the minority in the Republican Party. And so we came up with the idea. We formed the 603 Alliance, and we said, what is a model that we can use that's transparent, that's open, that would allow grassroots conservatives to be able to nominate for themselves a candidate that they were going to align and get behind. And then with the work of Mike Rogers and a committee of people, Diane Bitter and Fran Wendelbo and leaders in the conservative movement in New Hampshire, got together and we said, let's do this.
And Skip and Steve too during the
right. I mean,
during the gestation of this.
There were a lot of people involved in all of this. Jim Kofald, and the names go on and on. And it culminated in last Saturday. Over 700 conservatives, grassroots conservatives, showed up and participated in the first ever New Hampshire grassroots presidential caucus. And from all reports, it was a smashing success. I think that the actual administration of it, which I was nervous about, went fairly flawlessly. The first round, there was Ben Carson, Ted Cruz, and Carly Fiorina left. And then after that, Fiorina was dropped off, and it was Carson versus Cruz, and Cruz ended up winning. And we, as an organization, endorsed Senator Cruz at that point, and are backing him in his run for president.
And that's cool. And, Andrew, I know I was personally involved in some of the outreach, but I believe many members of the committee were involved in outreach to all of the candidates to get them to either show up in person or send strong representation or hold rallies, And let's make a couple of points here about this event. First of all, it was free, completely free to the attendees. The only thing they had to pay for was food from the food wagons outside at their choice. Everything else was organized, and the only thing the candidates had to pay for was if they wanted space in a tent for a rally outside.
Yeah, and to my amazement, only one candidate decided to engage and to really participate. This is I find this mind-boggling, and then I think about that it's politics and campaigns, and I probably shouldn't think it's mind-boggling, but when you go through a straw poll, and you guys you have to sort of back me up on this, but have you seen absolutely meaningless straw polls, like straw polls that mean absolutely nothing, and the candidates will buy hundreds of tickets? They will push. They'll do all of this activity, and at the end of it, all they get is literally a gold star that says, "Oh, you won the, Republican Liberty Caucus, straw poll. Great," and they walk away. Have you guys seen that?
Yes. Oh yeah, I've seen it lots of times, and I'm not going to state on the air here, but I've seen frequently who buys the most tickets and to what effect. And I don't quite agree that only one candidate put in the effort, Andrew. I believe that the Ben Carson's team put in a pretty good and sincere effort. Dave Tilley's a nice guy and a hard worker. They got a decent number of activists. They had a competent team on site.
Cruz was the only one who came in person.
Yeah, but Cruz was the only one who came in person. You know what? The other thing which again people maybe didn't realize. Do you think I went to the time and trouble of renting a pro-grade projector, building a little walk the plank out from one of the side pillars, and setting up a 12-foot screen that's nearly 15-foot diagonal, just so I could show a few cartoons in the interludes? We exhorted all of the candidates also to send us video clips, anything exhorting their voters or the voters, especially ones that became uncommitted, to group around their poll for the next round.
So this is my point about this. This is what I don't. This is sort of the part where there was a disconnect for me, which was you do the straw polls, you literally get nothing. The winner of the caucus gets the entire organization's endorsement and work. We sign on to the campaign, and we as a unified group move forward and work with you. You actually get something coming out of this event.
Yeah.
You get nothing coming out of these other events that they pour all this effort into.
Yeah, you would have had to tie Zach down to stop him running around with sign-up sheets after that.
Right. It's amazing to me that this is and hats off to the Cruz campaign. They're the ones who recognized it. And honestly, I don't know how you guys feel about what I'm about to say, but I gotta say I'm embarrassed by the Rand Paul campaign and their shenanigans in trying to cover their own laziness. I mean, literally, that's what it is. It's their own laziness in trying to say, "Oh well, we're just going to avoid this because maybe we think that it's rigged." Trying to plant these rumors and these ideas that this thing was rigged is absolutely absurd. They know it. They were embarrassed. They had a demolishing loss. The Cruz campaign out-ground gamed them, outworked them, proved to them that Rand Paul really has no ground game here in New Hampshire, and that his campaign is nearly inept. And it was an embarrassing show. There were 7 people who showed up for Rand Paul. Donald Trump had 3 times as many people show up, and it's just I felt like it was an embarrassment for the Rand Paul campaign and a statement of exactly where they're at. When people say, "Hey, is Rand Paul still running?" There's a reason why they're asking that question, because apparently they're on life support over there and just waiting for someone to please pull the plug. Which this week we heard Mitch McConnell McConnell, again, Rand's buddy, this guy that he's decided to endorse and to ingratiate himself to, the senior senator from Kentucky. Rand now is at his beck and call, and so we see McConnell this week coming out saying, Rand, you really need to focus on your Senate race. Oh, and by the way, you're probably going to have a primary in Trey Grayson again. So, I think the time for Rand Paul is very, very short, and I got to be honest with you, I think that's a good thing for our movement.
Yeah, so in other words, if he wants to have some hope of keeping a Senate seat and staying in the most exclusive club and being Mitch's buddy versus no chance of becoming president, he'd better choose. It's really interesting. I mean, Rand Paul in this state signed up one of the heavyweight campaign organizers and one of the oldest, longest-running, most veteran campaign operatives in the form of Mike Biondo and Dave Chesley. And not that Dave Chesley has ever won anything. But
wait, is this the Dave Chesley of the Lickgate scandal? The guy who was licking reporters' cameras?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't remember that one.
You don't remember that?
No, I do remember him.
Google it.
I do remember him claiming he was in charge of the Republican women at an event at the Crowne Plaza a couple of years back.
Oh, guys, he licked the camera. You guys, that was just a few months ago.
I think we did at the time.
No, he tried to bully Mike and I. That was the wrong thing for him to have done.
Yeah.
that I do remember. He was removed from the room.
And at the Crowne Plaza 2 weeks ago, we tried to wrangle the Paul campaign to come and talk to us, about what they were doing and their plans for the caucus and so on. And so I encountered Biondo and Chesley in the lobby, and I talked to them, and I talked to Mike Biondo and persuaded him to come and chat to Steve and myself.
Keep going.
But there was Chesley standing beside him, and talk about stony-faced. The man doesn't like me for good reason, and I'm perfectly happy to reciprocate.
Hey, Andrew, we're going to take a really quick break. Stay on the line. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy and Mike Rogers, and Ed Nail's ready to do his next segment. We're going to come back with Andrew and maybe talk about some things that happened at New Hampshire Young Republicans in a few minutes. Stay tuned. This is GrokTALK. We'll be right back.
Why are you going to want to listen to GrokTALK? Because when it comes to politics, news, and the culture, we are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservative bloggers, and activists. GrokTALK comes to you live Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed us on Saturday, catch us on Monday from 1 to 3 p.m. right here on The Rock, NHCR.com.
GrokTALK.
Hey, it's GrokTALK. Steve McDonald, Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and Andrew Hemingway coming to you live from Concord. I got a little bird, Andrew, who told me a story about something that may have happened at the... I had your mic off for a reason, because you were going to interrupt me, about a story that happened at involving the New Hampshire Young Republicans, and you were there. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So, why don't you fill us in?
Well, I'm not sure exactly which incident you're referring to. Is this the executive committee meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a constant effort here. I think that I say in good company, the New Hampshire GOP has never been a friend to conservatives, and constantly working to undermine them in any manner, way that they possibly could. So I'm the longest serving member of the New Hampshire Young Republicans Board of Directors. Been the Northeast Regional or the Northern Regional Chair for over 6 years now, and have been consistently working inside of that organization to try and advocate for Republican principles and values. Okay, so that's my credentials for you. What happened here is that for the first time ever, we saw a state party chair try and co-opt an organization that is not under her control. Now, the organization organization is called the New Hampshire Young Republicans, but we are chartered not by the GOP. We are chartered by the Young Republican National Federation, the YRNF. The New Hampshire GOP, in fact, has no ruling over us, has no participation inside of our organization whatsoever, and yet, constantly, there is this effort by this state party chair to try and do that. So, we had a meeting where we said, okay, we're going to have an election coming up, and as part of that election, we have a credentialing committee, right, following the bylaws. Credentialing committee agreed on the credentialing requirements, which is that you must be a dues-paying member. You had to have attended at least one event throughout the year, right, so that we don't have people just showing up randomly voting for somebody. You have to be a part of the organization. And so we set the credentialing requirements, and, well, that didn't sit well, you see, because they couldn't stack the room with their sheeple. And so because of that, they instead decided to co-opt the entire thing. And essentially they've created their own organization. Now, what's important for state committee members to understand is that the seat on the executive committee was awarded by our state bylaws and by our state committee members to a specific organization. That organization is chartered by the YRNF. That is our organization. We do not have a seat currently on the executive committee. Instead, by fiat, the state committee chair today, Jennifer Horn, has decided to name her own group and put her own people in a voting position on the executive committee. This in itself is a violation of the bylaws.
Really? And what is the name of this organization, Andrew?
Oh, they call themselves the New Hampshire Young Republicans.
Clockboy Ahmed's going to go live in Qatar, which is an absolute monarchy where they have a advisory council that pretty much serves at the whim of the absolute monarch. This sounds very similar to that.
It is strikingly similar, actually.
Andrew, this is Ed Neal.
It's absolutely disgusting what has occurred. So on Monday night, I attended an executive committee meeting, and I was appointed by Lino from Carroll County as the chairman to be able to represent him at this meeting. At this meeting, this is what I asked, and you guys tell me if this is a completely unrealistic request. I asked the chair, said, Madam Chair, there seems to be some disruption about which is the real Republican organization. We really want to win elections. We're sick and tired of this sort of bickering back and forth. What I'd like to do is at your request, I'd like to make a motion that you add a Young Republican conversation to next month's meeting, where both groups come in, both groups present their case, and the executive committee gets to decide on who is the proper group to be sitting at this table making votes. Tammy Simmons interrupts me halfway through and says, Madam Chair, this is ridiculous. I move to adjourn. Chairman Horn immediately grabs the gavel, slams it down, and says, adjourned, and literally runs out of the room. This is the environment in which we're currently operating. People go, how come we can't win elections? I just can't figure it out. It's like,
because the Republican Party's principals have no principles.
It's very, very obvious what's occurring here. So they're not interested in having someone like myself or someone like Bob Burns represent the New Hampshire Young Republicans, and they think that they get to decide who gets to do that. And so that's kind of where it stands today. I'm kind of.
So where did their NHYR come from, Andrew? And does it have any members?
Oh, they handpicked a few young people who are going to be there. Again, sheeple, to use that in the nicest way possible. Who will follow their edicts. What's interesting is when this happened, they took over the Facebook page and the Twitter page and some other things. Well, we've applied. We went back to Twitter and said, actually, that group is taking our stuff. Twitter gave us back our account. Facebook gave us back our account. But we had to show them proof of this. They absolutely said, yes, no problem. Bank accounts, PayPal. Yep, we understand. We see the paperwork that you're providing for us, and you're right. You are the legitimate organization. They give us all back to it. The New Hampshire GOP? No, this is, you guys are manipulating this situation to your benefit. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So
Ed had a question for you.
Andrew, this is Ed Nail. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, you might want to go up to the Secretary of State's office. If you guys are a registered nonprofit, you would have that name. and I don't believe they would allow another organization to have almost the exact same name.
Oh,
have you tried that yet?
Here's an interesting little turn of events here. We are in conversations with Secretary of State Bill Gardner, so that is occurring. When the name came up, Bill Gardner reached out to Jennifer, to Chairman Horn. My apologies. I want to maintain the.
You can call her J-Ho if you want.
Reached out to her and said, does this group have the ability to use the name New Hampshire, to use the title Republican in their name? Which first of all, Jennifer Horn doesn't hold the copyright to this. This is the RNC, not the New Hampshire GOP, right? So
Correct.
First of all, this is messed up. Second of all, we are chartered through the RNC, through YRNF, to the New Hampshire Young Republicans, so it's a completely different chain. So she writes a letter to the Secretary of State demanding that he remove our recognition of our organization as a legitimate group, by the state of New Hampshire. And so we are currently working through the Secretary of State, and we'll win there too, because facts are Ed, you know all about this.
Yeah, and the NHGOP isn't very good at winning things. So.
You know what? The only phrase that comes to mind, Andrew, is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it sounds like Jennifer Horn is all caught up all in herself, thinking that she has stuff for which she has no right. My question is, where's the rest of the E-Board on this? Or is this a conspiracy among all the E-Board folks? Is anybody else standing up to saying, no, this is not the right thing to do? Or are they basically just trying to, we're going to take this as our own private fiefdom?
It is. There are members of the board who recognize what's going on, but I'll say this. So when she ran out, I stood up in the meeting. The meeting had been adjourned. I stood up and I started yelling. I said, "Is this how you treat young Republicans? Is this how you treat young voters seeking to be an active part of the Republican organization?" Okay, and the executive committee is sitting in front of me. Many of them just sort of lowered their heads. So I said, well, does anyone here doubt my sincerity in moving the Republican cause forward? Can anyone say that I've been a hindrance to moving the cause forward? Are more young people involved in Republican politics in New Hampshire today because of my efforts? Right? Everybody agrees. Of course, people, no one can doubt your sincerity. So why aren't you guys helping me? And there's these blank looks around the table. And you know what it is? It goes back to Steve's point about guitar. It's this rule by absolute loyalty. And it's the demand that you forget facts, that you forget your own principles. You must completely submit to my authority, or else you will pay the ultimate price. And there are very few people, frankly, in our society, but especially, it seems, on the New Hampshire Executive Committee, who are willing to look at facts and make a ruling absent of a whisper in their ear on what the party thinks that they should be doing.
We're going to send him some Republican repair kits. Maybe that'll be useful. We're out of time, Andrew. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your morning to spend with us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys very much.
All right.
Good luck,
Thank you, sir.
Andrew.
Good luck.
Soon.
All right, Andrew Hemingway. That's a great story. I think we're going to be writing some articles about that
It's
one.
yeah.
It's a continuing story.
It is a continuing. It's the
Never-ending.
ongoing saga.
The never-ending story.
We'll
It's
have
like
to
a
get
fantasy.
We'll have to get the soap opera music, and we'll be all
how-
set. We'll have our own little.
How did the name change again? What did they do?
They
subtly?
just tried to steal New Hampshire Young Republicans and just take it as their own. So
Somebody,
excuse me.
if we have a couple seconds,
We don't. We're going to come right back,
Come
though.
back, we'll
uh,
so we're going to come back and talk to you. So stay tuned. This is GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald, Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and Ed Nail. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Croc TV.